I love this poem because I find it technically interesting and I love the idea conveyed in it. And I hope after this video you'll find it inspiring as well. First, I'll offer some quick preliminary thoughts, then I'll read the poem, and in the last part I'll talk about it and expand on some of those ideas I touched on at the beginning. The story in the ode is basically this. Someone is walking in the woods and comes across two lovers, two divine beings, Cupid and Psyche, sleeping in each other's arms. For the rest of the ode, the speaker contemplates the significance of this Greek goddess Psyche. Although I'll talk about most technical aspects after I've read it, I want to mention this one technical aspect. The line lengths are not all the same. Towards the end of each stanza, there is between 1 and 4 lines of 3 beats, whereas the majority of the ode is made of 5-beat lines. As I read it, see if you can detect an audible difference. Also, see if you can hear anything unusual about the rhymes. Okay, let's read. Ode to Psyche. O goddess, hear these tuneless numbers, rung by sweet enforcement and remembrance dear, and pardon that thy secrets should be sung, even into thine own soft-conchid ear. Surely I dreamt today, or did I see the winged Psyche with awakened eyes? I wandered in a forest thoughtlessly, and on the sudden, fainting with surprise, saw two fair creatures couched side by side in deepest grass, beneath the whispering roof of leaves and trembled blossoms, where there ran a brooklet scarce espied. Mid hushed, cool-rooted flowers, fragrant-eyed, blue, silver, white, and budded Tyrian, they lay, calm-breathing, on the bedded grass, their arms embraced, and their pinions too. Their lips touched not, but had not bade adieu, as if disjoined by soft-handed slumber, and ready still past kisses to outnumber at tender eye-dawn of Aurorian love. The winged boy I knew, but who wast thou, O happy, happy dove? His Psyche true. O latest born and loveliest vision far of all Olympus' faded hierarchy, fairer than Phoebe's sapphire-regioned star, or Vesper, amorous glowworm of the sky, fairer than these, though temple thou hast none, nor altar heaped with flowers, nor virgin choir to make delicious moan upon the midnight hours, no voice, no lute, no pipe, no incense sweet from chain-swung censer teeming, no shrine, no grove, no oracle, no heat of pale-mouthed prophet dreaming. O brightest, though too late for antique vows, too late for the fond believing lyre, when holy were the haunted forest boughs, holy the air, the water, and the fire, yet even in these days, so far retired from happy pieties, thy lucent fans, fluttering among the faint Olympians I see, and sing, by mine own eyes inspired. So let me be thy choir, and make a moan upon the midnight hours, thy voice, thy lute, thy pipe, thy incense sweet from swinged censer teeming, thy shrine, thy grove, thy oracle, thy heat of pale-mouthed prophet dreaming. Yes, I will be thy priest, and build a fane in some untrodden region of my mind, where branched thoughts, new-grown with pleasant pain, instead of pines, shall murmur in the wind. Far, far around shall those dark-clustered trees fledge the wild rigid mountains steep by steep, and there by zephyrs, streams, and birds and bees, the moss-slain dryads shall be lulled to sleep. And in the midst of this wide quietness, a rosy sanctuary will I dress, with the wreathed trellis of a working brain, with buds and bells and stars without a name, with all the gardener fancy e'er could feign, who, breeding flowers, will never breed the same. And there shall be for thee all soft delight that shadowy thought can win, a bright torch and a casement ope at night to let the warm love in. Please keep in mind these thoughts are all my own. Take them for what you think they're worth. What do you think of this metaphor Keats makes towards the beginning when he describes the lovers lying there, of the close face of the lover one wakes up to, like waking up to a new day, to dawn, or as he calls it, Aurorian love? I think with this metaphor, he captures the resplendence of the soul when it's in love with another person. I was wondering whether this is an absurd juxtaposition. The speaker goes for a walk, that's ordinary and human, and then he chances upon two Greek gods lying unconscious in the grass. I don't think that has to be jarring. The narrator simply lives in a universe where that's possible, where the lives of men and gods mix. That's the leap of fantasy we have to take with the speaker straight away. So who is Psyche? She appears in literature in the 2nd century AD in a story called The Golden Ass by Apuleius. Psyche was mortal and becomes divine after she and Cupid had fallen in love. She comes late into the Greek pantheon, and this is actually the instigating thought of the narrator. He perceives Psyche to have missed out on something she deserves. She appears after the time when the Greeks take such mysticism seriously. There is no cult of Psyche, no religious rite pertaining to her. The speaker finds this unjust, and he offers a solution. So he offers to create with his imagination alone a whole world for her where she can thrive. What Keats is describing, I think, is reverence. I believe the theme of this poem is the restoration of an appreciation of something valuable, but that was unjustly forgotten or underappreciated. And the poem offers us a picture of how one can be true to the thing one loves, how one has to give it space in the mind and nurture it, put in time thinking about it, and constantly recall it to allow it to continue to have its benevolent, inspiring effect. Otherwise, it'll be overrun by the constant flow of new impressions and worries and things like that. So now on to the technical part. Did you hear the difference in the line lengths? This ode is irregular in a few ways. There are 5 stanzas. The number of lines in each are as follows: 12, 11, 12, 14, 18. And where the 3-beat line is in every stanza is also irregular. There's irregularity in rhyming. We have A, B, B, A once, and a few couplets, although the normal pattern is A, B, A, B. And there are 4 lines that don't rhyme at all. What are we to do with all this? I don't think these choices are necessarily significant to the meaning of the poem. For example, concerning the number of lines in each stanza, it seems they are simply as long as Keats needs them to be. In other words, the meaning takes precedence over the form. Concerning the irregular line lengths and rhymes, there is a pattern, but it's loose. Although the shorter lines seem to happen whenever they want, I don't think it gives the impression of randomness. These 3-beat lines always happen in the second half of the stanza, and especially at the end, but the norm is clearly 5-beat lines throughout. Also, the number of lines that don't rhyme is a minor variation on the norm, and the idea of rhyme is constant despite a mix of rhyme patterns. For example, AB, AB happens consistently in the first stanza, which sets up the pattern, and the first consecutively rhyming lines happens only in the middle of the second stanza, and in total, this variation happens only 4 times. So we have a nice blend of principles that are constant, but which are varied in unpredictable ways which sound fresh and alive. Here's one example of varied repetition which is very explicit. It's between stanzas 3 and 4. In the 3rd stanza, he lists what the goddess is missing out on. No, quote, virgin choir to make delicious moan upon the midnight hours. No voice, no lute, no pipe, no incense sweet, etc. In the 4th stanza, he reuses that list, putting it at the end as it had been in the 3rd stanza. But the perspective is now, I will offer these things to you, instead of simply, you are missing these things. And this change of perspective necessitates variation in the expression. So let me be thy choir, and make a moan upon the midnight hours, thy voice, thy lute, thy pipe, thy incense sweet, etc. I think a poet has the choice to be formally tight or formally loose, and perhaps there's a reason to be found in the sense of the poem that gives the poet the idea to choose either one, and then the poem would be an example of the integration of theme and form. But often I suspect there might not be a reason to do either. And this poem offers examples of freer expression that is still regulated by intelligible pattern. If we're attuned to these subtle aspects of the poem, it can be delightful because within the bounds of what we expect, the poem finds ways to surprise us. That's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for listening.